And away we go. Welcome to a special edition of Fox 10 Talk Sports, the fun stuff. And it's all thanks to the NFL schedule getting released today. Hallelujah. It's finally here. Yeah, we've got a great group here. We've got Robby Baker, my man with the plan here, my partner in crime. We also got Howard Balzer, our Cardinals insider. Howard, you've been covering the NFL for what, 50 years now? First of all, just tell us where you're at, what you're up to.
Well, where I'm at now, as people can see, not with my great background that I often have when I do Zooms with you when I'm back in Phoenix. I'm in Birmingham, Alabama, in production week for Lindy's Pro Football Preview. And this is the 33rd magazine that I've been senior editor of, starting with them in 1993. And it's nonstop. It's been nonstop since the draft, really, with all the stories and team previews that are coming in. But we go to the printer on Sunday, and then it'll be available on newsstands around the first week in June, if there are newsstands anymore. But Lindy Davis has stuck with it over the years when there used to be so many of these. Now there's only two. I won't mention the other one. I don't want people buying their magazine. I want them to buy ours. But you can go to the nearest grocery store, wherever, or you can call Lindy's, and they'll mail you one. So been great doing it. I've enjoyed it, and I'll just keep doing it until I can't anymore.
I was 1 year old when Howard took over as the editor. Sorry, Howard. Sorry.
And, we got the chat open, right? People can make suggestions, some comments. I want them to kind of comment and suggest who Howard should put on the cover of the magazine, right? Because each region has a Cardinal or a Cowboy, depending on where they're sold. Is that correct, Howard? So you're gonna have to pick a guy to have on the cover, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yes, there's one for pretty much every team. There are a couple of combinations, obviously, in New York. They don't sell separate ones for the Giants and the Jets, but it's a lot of different covers, and they all get distributed in those areas of the country. I'm not sure what they do actually in some of the areas that don't have a team, but that's the way it is. And so, yeah, I pick who goes, who's featured on every cover that we have.
Robby, who do you think should be on the cover?
Kyler feels like the easy choice.
Yeah.
Right? The obvious choice. What about Trey McBride? The huge extension this offseason, arguably the best tight end in football right now. If you look on the defensive side, we've talked a lot to Mac Wilson over the offseason, and we'll get into the schedule release. He's going to kind of be a special part of that. I'll put my money on Trey McBride, I guess. I kind of he's kind of becoming, other than Kyler, Trey is kind of becoming the de facto secondary face of this franchise.
Yeah, and Mac Wilson's going to actually do like a rap. He's going to actually do like a song.
He's an artiste.
Yeah, 18 bars. He's gonna have like a little. It's cool because now the teams have these video releases, right? Where they release the schedule through a cool video, and I'm hearing that the Cardinals one is gonna be pretty good, fire, right, as they say. So we'll see how good it is. What about James Conner though? I think he could be on the cover. I mean, that guy was awesome, especially when it comes to fantasy football. He was on the Chimichangas. He was on my team, and we went all the way to the Super Bowl. So he was fantastic. So, that Lindsay magazine, Howard, is kind of like my fantasy football Bible. So make sure you put some good information in there because I'm gonna be using all that for my draft. Do you guys put depth charts? What do you guys put in the magazine?
Yeah, we have tons of information, no doubt about it. One of the things that is most proud of, there's a lot of things in it, but we have a full page roster for every team, which also has a one-liner comment that goes with all the other info with the height and weight and all those things. And then we'll put in bold the players in each, and I break them down by, it's, one of the things that I started doing right in the very beginning. You'd see these previews back in the day, and the roster they'd have in there was alphabetical, in alphabetical order. And I said, what does that tell anybody? All it is a list of names. So I decided I'm going to do it position by position. And that's the way the roster is set up. And then within each position, we put in bold the players that are projected to be starters. So that's about as close to a depth chart as you can get. And so, your mention of James Conner, I'm fairly certain he was on the cover last year. And I was deciding what to do because, Kyler was coming back from the knee injury and you really weren't sure what to do about, that spot. So I had James Conner on last year. Most of the time I don't have defensive players because, people gravitate obviously to the quarterbacks and the receivers and the running backs, and Kyler's been on it in the past. And so I don't know if you want me to give it away now or wait to see if people have some suggestions.
Well,
But
we got some people in the chat. Michael, he says it's got to be Kyler. Well, now that you said you had Connor last year, I'm thinking it's not going to be him. So, Robby, you might be the winner here with Trey McBride, but you're always the smartest guy in the room.
Oh,
right?
that's not true.
Yeah, so,
I fake it till I make it.
Hey, we're gonna fake it till we make it to the final release of the schedule, right? We're still waiting on that. And what do you guys think, Robby? What do you think about the way they've been leaking stuff out? Because it's been like counting the days till Christmas here. It's been pretty. I kind of like it where you kind of get a couple of leaks. You're like, okay, this could be a game. This could be a game. Some people are saying just wait till the day, and I'm like, why are you so mad, bro? Like, relax, right? So what do you think? Do you like the fact that they kind of tease us and give these little tidbits and stuff?
Leave it. The NFL is the only league in the world, right, where just releasing what day the games will be played has now become almost like its own national holiday, especially for us media types that consume all this stuff.
Right.
It just goes to show you how big the NFL is. It is truly a 365-day a year sport to cover. I don't mind the leaks. It helps us do our job because then we kind of have an idea now of what this is going to all look like before it, quote unquote, officially comes out. It's just funny that the teams put so much work into the videos, and every team in the NFL Network put so much work into the broadcast of this schedule release and all of the social media hype around it. But pretty much at 3 p.m. today, Arizona time, we pretty much knew what every schedule was all the way across the league.
There was a lot of leaks, that's for sure, right?
Yeah.
And Howard, we talked about some of the games. We knew for sure, the Cardinals were going to start on the road at New Orleans, 2 primetime games, Thursday night football at home against Seattle. I kind of like that. I'm going to probably get a new AC for my RV because I'm going to bet a bunch on the Cardinals. Sam Darnold's not that guy. You know what I mean? I think the Cardinals win that one. And then their Monday night football at Dallas. Those are just a couple of the games. Howard, what do you think about the leagues? I mean, I'm sure you probably knew way before us. You've forgotten more football than we know. But what do you think about the NFL kind of giving us just a little taste, just a little tease here and there?
I've never seen this many leaks before. There's always been leaks here and there. Oh, this is the national game, and of course they announce some of those, and the NFL does that. But I've never seen this many issues, this many times where it's not only leaks about certain games, but where we know the entire schedule for some teams. I mean, I put them together here and this and here and that and here and this. I've got we'll see if it's right in about 10 minutes, but I've got the whole schedule right now for the Cardinals. And and there's other teams I've seen it for. So I've never seen it like this before. And I think a lot of it is probably because, normally it was kept really close to the vest with every team. Teams didn't tell anybody or any of that. Well, now the NFL started announcing, okay, here's the international games, right? Oh, here's the Thursday night game to open the season. Here's some of the primetime games. Here's this, here's that. So there's so many people who have had, and then the teams, like you said, the Cardinals preparing the social media for this, and all the teams are doing that. So a lot more people know the schedule, prior to it being announced than have in the past. And some of those people are going to tell people, and before you know it, it's all over Twitter, it's all over everywhere with what the teams are doing. So, I guess it kind of is a little bit anticlimactic, but it's still kind of cool to see it all develop during the course of the day. But I think the NFL they created it. They created this monster by the way they announced things, earlier in this week, and give teams carte blanche, to do their social media stuff and not have to wait until it becomes official.
We got a couple people in the chat right now. Isabella, watching from Phoenix. Hello, Isabella. And Denise, watching from Safford, Arizona. Hello.
I believe that's D-Nice.
D-Nice, watching from Safford. Anybody who's in the chat, obviously let us know what you think of when we get to the schedule release, what you think of the schedule. Richard also mentioned how Mack Wilson Sr., the linebacker, we're expecting him to have some sort of a rap song as part of the release video for the Cardinals. The Cardinals, they sent out an email to kind of promote this. I actually didn't know this. Mack Wilson, Jesse Luketa, and Zach Pascal are all part of a rap group called Third and Go. So this is going to be kind of one of their first EPs coming out. So if we can go on the chat as well, what would Howard and Richard's rap group name be? We'll solicit those now too, and maybe we'll get them in the studio with Mack at some point.
Now my mind's racing. I'm going back to my days when I was a breakdancer.
You could pop, lock, and drop it
yeah, I
still.
was.
Maybe not drop it, but pop and lock.
Yeah, I could go down. I could pop lock down, but I can't get back up anymore. But I was in the mob. We were the masters of breaking. It was great. We would go to the quinceañeras and wait for the parents to stop dancing to Mexican music, and then we'd come out and we'd popping and locking. We'd see IBM, the Incredible Breaking Mechanics, like, what are they doing here? This is our party. The floor rockers would show up, and we'd, breakdance each other.
We have taken a turn. We have taken a turn on the live stream.
It's going off the rails, isn't it? I went to a trip down memory lane.
Hey, this is all you can get on the Fox Local app, man. This is the good stuff.
If we didn't have Robby, Richard and I, we could be the OGs.
Hey,
right?
There you go.
But with Robby, it could be 2 men and a baby.
2 men and a baby. I like that.
I got that one coming back to me when I said I was 1 year old earlier when you took over for Lindy. So I totally deserved that one.
Balzer with the zingers. You gotta love it. That is great. Oh, baby, we are on a roll now, right? Hey, we also have some of the international games. The good thing is that the Cardinals will not have to go overseas. Here's a look at some of the international games. You got in Brazil. The Vikings, Robby, what's going on here? They play 2
back
games
to back
on the road. Who did they make bad? What's going on?
I mean, at least once they're over there, the travel isn't bad. But
they stay.
Yeah, they're staying pretty much in the same region there in the United Kingdom. But every year you got the Jaguars are always going to play over there. The Vikings, the back to back is unique. The Jets always seem like they end up getting sent over. The new ones this year, well, last year, the week 1, they had the Packers and Eagles in Brazil. So this year it's going to be Chiefs and Chargers. And then the new ones added are Berlin and then Madrid, Spain. And those should be some interesting atmospheres, especially in Berlin, Germany. That should be a pretty unique atmosphere there for Falcons Colts.
Yeah, we're a couple minutes away from it becoming official. But Howard, when you look at the schedule, what do you look at? Because I know a lot of fans are like, oh, I want to go to this game. Some fans go, oh, that's a win, that's a loss. Do you look at that, or do you look at matchups between players or the team, or whether they travel a lot? What are you looking at when you see the schedule first come out?
I look at the way the schedule develops, because obviously we've known since the regular season ended last year, several months ago, we've known all the teams that the Cardinals are going to play home and away. So how does the schedule, open up and develop? And I know what the teams look at a lot of times is, when is our bye? And do we have that dreaded 3 games in a row on a road that doesn't happen often, but it'll happen sometimes once or twice a year? And the Cardinals don't have that, but they do have, according to what we've learned, 3 of the last 4 games of the season are on the road, including the final 2. So if the Cardinals can make the playoffs, you would think that, boy, they're going to, they're going to have to be pretty good going into week 15 and do a lot better on the road, certainly, than they did last season. But those are some of the things, the matchups we knew, certainly, you look at, the young quarterbacks, things like that, of who they're playing. And hey, the first week of the season at New Orleans with the retirement in the last week of Derek Carr from the Saints, that means the 2 Arizona high school kids probably are going to be dueling it out for the starting job in training camp. Spencer Rattler, who's in his 2nd season, and then the kid they drafted in the 2nd round from Louisville, Tyler Shuck. And so that's going to be interesting to see which one of those quarterbacks wins the job. So, those are some of the things, that you look at. And the bye, the Cardinals have had a relatively late bye the last few seasons. This week, according to sources, it's in week 8, smack dab in the middle of the season. So I think that's a pretty good time for the bye. But those are some of the things you look for. Obviously, you look at the primetime games. We talked about that. And also, last year in week 17, the Cardinals were in a 5-team pool that they don't decide who's playing on Saturday or Sunday until about a week or 2 before that game. And they didn't get chosen last year because of the way the season was going. This year, week 17 at Cincinnati, they're in one of those 5-team pools and could end up being on a somewhat standalone game on Saturday, depending on where, how competitive it is. You figure the Bengals are going to be competitive with Joe Burrow. So, those are a bunch of the things that, that I look at in the schedule.
Robby, first 4 weeks, 2 division games for the Cardinals here.
Right.
possibly, right? San Francisco and Seattle, of course, the primetime game. When you see that, you say, whoa, Cardinals better start off fast, even though they played well early last year, and then they fizzled towards the end. So that, you think that works in their favor, or is that going to be tough for the Cardinals?
If you look at what we think the schedule will be, we think it's going to be at New Orleans, home for Carolina, at San Francisco, and then home for Seattle on Thursday Night Football. That would, as we assume here, it's just at 5 o'clock. The schedules will start to become official momentarily. This is what we think the schedule is going to look like. At the Saints to start,
That's a win.
as
No,
Howard
I'm just
alluded to. I mean the Cardinals. If the Cardinals are going to be what we think they're going to be, or they should be this year,
They
should,
are who we thought they were.
and they should win that game. And then week 2, the Panthers. I don't know what the Panthers are going to. I mean, the Cardinals home opener, that is a decent draw. And then at the 49ers, they lost a lot this offseason. They're early in the season to play that division game. I don't think is bad because they have a lot of question marks of what that team is going to look like. And then you alluded to the change of quarterback in Seattle with Sam Darnold. A month into the season, they may not have their footing entirely with what that offense is going to look like. They lost DK Metcalf as well this offseason. Tyler Lockett is gone. That offense is going to look entirely different. I actually don't hate that the Cardinals have those 2 division games, and especially the one being at home on Thursday Night Football. Maybe a little extra juice in the building. I mean, I actually think it's a chance for the Cardinals to get off to a hot start. And when you look at Howard was talking about the road games, for the most part, when you look at the schedule, Howard mentioned the byes and, when games fall on the schedule. At the Bengals in week 17, if that's what it ends up being, that will be a cold weather game in Cincinnati. That is not something the Cardinals traditionally fare well with. But other than that, if you look at their schedule, they kind of avoided the other potholes, if you will, of having to go on the road to play in these cold weather games. Indy is a dome, but that's early in the season. So really, the Bengals. Well, I remember a few years ago. That was it last year was Buffalo, right, in week 1 or 2 years ago.
They had them on the ropes.
And they had them on the ropes, and everyone said that. Oh, good, they got Buffalo at the beginning of the year because it's not negative 30 degrees.
Yeah,
outside.
that's a good point. Yeah. We got a couple comments in the chat. Michael says I would pay money to see Richard breakdance. Well, you might want to start a GoFundMe account. It could be a lot of money. I'm expensive, I mean, if you want the heartbeat and all that stuff, you got to pay extra for that. But Michael also had a question for Howard and in the Lindsay magazine. Howard, do you guys predict what the wins and losses, what the record's going to be at the end of the season for the teams?
We don't predict wins and losses, and we do have a predicted order of finish for each division, and then I will predict who are the wild card teams, who will be in the conference championship games, and then who in the Super Bowl. And I'm still waiting for the day where I can actually predict the Super Bowl correctly, which of course it's hard enough as it is, but to do it in May when it's this far away from anything is really a shot in the dark. But that's what we predict. We don't break it down by wins and losses or any of those things, but we do have predictions in there. But thanks for the question. A quick point too on the home and the road, as you were talking about those primetime games. That game at San Francisco. Now, granted, it's not bad travel to get from Phoenix to San Francisco, but you're still on the road, and then you come home for that Thursday night football game.
Right.
Then the game against Dallas on Monday Night Football at Dallas in week 9, and then on a short week they have to go on the road again to play the Seahawks. So it doesn't look like the schedule maker did the Cardinals too many favors. But those first 6 games, I think, is where the Cardinals really have to get off to a good start, because we mentioned it. New Orleans, who knows who the quarterback's going to be. Carolina, Bryce Young played pretty well at the end of last year, but still a young quarterback. 49ers, as you alluded, a lot of questions with that team, especially on defense. And is Brandon Ayuk going to be healthy? Then Seattle, not only with Sam Darnold, but DK Metcalf isn't there anymore. Tyler Lockett isn't there anymore. So Seattle's kind of, who knows what they're going to be. Tennessee, they've got a rookie quarterback, Cam Ward, and so you'd much rather have a game against a team like that early in the season. And then at Indianapolis, boy, you've got Anthony Richardson, who has been disappointing in his first 2 years. First season was ended by injury, and then they brought in Daniel Jones. So who knows who the quarterback is going to be there. So those 6 games, I think, are really important for the Cardinals to obviously, you're not going to go undefeated, you wouldn't think, but I think it's really, really important to get off to a very good start, to start weathering that second part of the schedule.
I'll tell you this, Howard. If they do go undefeated, if they go 6-0, I'll buy you Rudy's barbecue because I know you love the brisket from there, and that's my way to keep you engaged, right? I'm like, hey, Howard, meet me at Rudy's, and he shows up early. It's the only time Howard's ever early or on time. But hey, speaking of right on time, the schedule's been released, right? The video's been released. Robby, have you seen a little bit of the video, the Mac Wilson
The
thing?
music video is
What do you
out.
think?
Yeah,
What do you
I don't think I'm allowed to play it on the stream, but
Right.
I mean the production value is
Sure.
very high. It's a legit music video experience, and it was a rap song, so I can confirm that.
Okay.
And then the schedule is out. So if we have the graphic, we can put up that this is all confirmed schedule for the Cardinals here. So it is. This is exactly how it will be playing out for the Cardinals in 2025, the Week 8 bye week. You're right in the middle of the season, as Howard said. The Cardinals have had later bye weeks, which has its own benefits at the later stage of a season. But this is kind of your right smack dab middle of the season reset point, and then they come back with back-to-back road games. The first game after the bye will be at Dallas on Monday Night Football, and I think it's worth mentioning that Kyler Murray does not lose in the state of Texas, so we'll just count Week 9 as a win for the Cardinals at this point.
Yeah.
And then you see the second half of the season. Really, I mean, the last quadrant there, 3 of the last 4 on the road against teams that maybe not the Falcons, but most of those teams, Texans, Bengals, and Rams, we all imagine will be fighting for playoff positioning or playoff spots. So the Cardinals need to be in a good position going into that home stretch because, as we've seen with this team in the last couple years, the second half of seasons have not been their I will say it has not been friendly to them.
Right.
So
yeah. Their strong point.
yeah, so the fact that this is the way the season ends on the road against these teams, if they're going to make the playoffs, they're going to have to earn it. That's for sure.
Yeah, and it could come down to that Rams game for a playoff spot, right? Battling a division team.
And it helps, like Howard said, they're going to go 6-0 to start the season.
Exactly.
Howard guaranteed
Yeah,
it.
yeah, with Rudy's barbecue on the way. But when I look at the schedule, I do the same thing. I'm like, won, lost, but then after that, I look at matchups, right? Not just the game matchup, but like individual players. Like Howard mentioned, the number 1 pick, Cam Ward, coming to town, with Tennessee. I'm like, oh, cool. I'm going to get to watch him. He went to my college, University of Incarnate Word in San Antonio. Shout out to the Incarnate Word Cardinals, right? So in week 5, and that's good, though. You get a rookie quarterback early, get some tape on him, so it's not too early where you really don't got any NFL tape on him. Get some tape on him. He's still kind of learning. You can get to him. And then, of course, the 2 primetime games. I look forward to that. But also, I want to see Week 12, Jacksonville coming to town.
Travis Hunter comes to town.
Will Johnson, the kid from our second-round pick from Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
That would be a great matchup, too. So I look at those individual matchups as well. That's what excites me. But
Howard, I'm curious. Sorry to cut you off, Richard,
Yeah.
but you mentioned the primetime games. Last year, the Cardinals had won the Monday Night Football home game against the Chargers that they won in Field Goal Fest. Are you surprised? Is the 2 primetime games the Cardinals have this year about right for you, do you think? They have a Thursday night and a Monday night. They haven't been on Sunday Night Football in like 3 or 4 years.
I think that there was a chance. I think one thing that hurt a little bit is having attractive matchups. And it's not like, there's bad NFL games. Sometimes there are, obviously. But when you're playing those 2 divisions, the AFC South and the NFC South, I think that limits the matchups. That's why I had said earlier, I thought maybe a good one might have been, the Cardinals in Tampa Bay. But
do I have to switch
when you look at the way that the formula is, that's the way it fell this year. And that should be an advantage for the Cardinals on another issue is that, and I know what happened last year doesn't necessarily translate to this year, but those 8 teams in those 2 divisions had a combined winning percentage of only .390 last year. And that's 8 games of your schedule, almost half the games. Now, granted, every other team in the Cardinals division plays all those same teams. And so everyone is thinking the same thing, that we should do well. But, when you're talking about teams like Jacksonville, new head coach, Indianapolis, who's going to be the quarterback, Tennessee, man, you look at that roster, they've got a lot of question marks. NFC South with, the Panthers are improved at the end of last year, New Orleans, young quarterback, and, Tampa Bay and Atlanta, some people think they could be pretty good. But I think if it was a more attractive schedule for those 8 games, they might have landed another primetime game. But, at least they got 2. And now if you're going to get more, you've got to win more. And those are generally, the teams that obviously have won a lot of games from the previous years, or are darn good teams that are going to get the most primetime games, or just are attractive. The Cowboys have a losing record, doesn't matter. They're going to be on national.
Exactly.
They're going to be primetime games a lot, just like the Bears, just like the Giants, even the Jets. I mean, those teams are going to be on because they play in huge markets, and that's what it's all about. So
yeah, when you think about it, Howard, the J-Lo's got more rings than the Cowboys since the mid '90s. She's been proposed to more. She's got more wedding rings than the Cowboys. But I think what's also cool about that matchup, right? It's two primetime matchups. That's different. That's better than last year, and it's Kyler Murray, a Texas high school football legend, going back to Dallas. He's from Allen. It's right there. He's never lost at Cowboy Stadium. So that not only is it the Cowboys, but it's a good matchup, and I think that's one of the reasons why they picked that game to be on Monday night. So that's going to be cool to see because Kyler Murray just doesn't lose. In Dallas, he doesn't lose at that stadium. So he's going to want to keep his undefeated streak alive. And the cool thing about this show, Howard and Robby, is my ADD is going to work out perfectly because we got a bunch of stuff going on. I'm going to have to do a live hit for Fox 10. The TV channel in a couple of minutes. So you guys will be able to get the behind the scenes look of when I do that live hit. And then I'm also going to do my sports cast from this seat here. Studio 3, I guess is what we call it, right? Because we got the main studio, where we're doing the news as we speak. Then we got other podcast rooms. This is Studio 3. So in less than a minute, I'm going to do a live shot for the top of the newscast on Fox 10. So it's really interesting to see how that works out. So I'm going to have to switch over my IFB so I can listen to the actual newscast. So if they ask me a couple questions, we'll see I can hear what they have to say. So now I'm listening to the newscast right now, and I'm going to wait for them to toss to me. And if you guys are watching on the YouTube channel local app, you can fire in some questions in the chat. And we'll have Howard and Robby answer those when I come back from doing this live hit with the news guys. So, like I said, exciting times. Yeah, it's been great. I was like a kid before Christmas, counting the days. Actually, showered today. That's how excited I was for the schedule release. Right, it's always a lot of fun. And hey, that video was pretty cool by Mac Wilson. Very nice. And that's the thing now. They got these video releases, and the Cardinals get not one but two primetime games. They get one here at home. Thursday night football against Seattle, the division game. There you see it. Here it's official. Start on the road at the Saints. They could be playing either Spencer Rattler or the Shuck Kid. You got the Panthers, at home. That's the home opener. So 2 of the first 4 games are division games, and then one of them a primetime game. And then week 5, the number 1 overall pick in the NFL draft, Cam Ward, comes to town. Here's the second half of the season. There's another primetime game at Monday Night Football at the Cowboys. Kyler Murray going back to Texas. He's never lost at Cowboy Stadium. And then, boy, look at that towards the end. You get 3 road games, 3 of the last 4 games on the road. So hopefully the Cardinals can stack some wins early because towards the end there, it's going to get interesting to see what happens. And then, of course, playing the Rams, another division opponent in the final week of the season. That could come down to making the playoffs or not. So it's exciting times for not just the players, the teams, but the fans as well. Correct. Yeah, well, there were some leaks, right? And that's the crazy thing. A lot of people are like, I don't know if I like the leaks or not. Sometimes the leaks weren't correct, but that they do play Tampa Bay in the regular season, and that'll be Week 13, which is going to be an interesting matchup because it's Baker Mayfield against Kyler Murray, two friends and Oklahoma Sooners, Heisman Trophy winners. So that's going to be a good matchup. Well, I'm kind of surprised that one wasn't a primetime matchup. That would have been cool to see those guys go at each other on primetime. Is at New Orleans. taking on the Saints, and a possible, local guy, quarterback in the Saints, Spencer Rattler, is still there. And then, of course, Shuck is another rookie they just drafted who's from here as well. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. It's kind of like when you get back with the girl that cheated on you in the first place, and she broke your heart that first time, and you're like, not this time. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be Forrest Gump and have Jenny bring her back, have Jenny come back and break my heart. You know what I mean? So that's probably what it is. It's from past experiences. But I will say this, because I'm a romantic. You know what I mean? Each year, the Cardinals have gotten better. Their win total went from 5 to 8. So we'll see if they can get to double digits. And if they do, then they could be in the playoffs. Exactly. Exactly. Wow. Yeah. Right. I'm in that 20%. I think they're going to continue to improve because, like you guys mentioned, the defense. Every single pick but one in the draft this year was on the defensive side of the football. The focus on in the offseason was defensive side. Defense wins championships, and that's what the Cardinals are doing. You're welcome. All right, so now we're back on the stream.
We're back like we never left because we never did.
It's crazy. So the poll question they were asking me, John and Ellen were asking me about the number of wins, right? So we had a poll question. It was either 1 or 4, 5 or 6, 9 or 12, or better. And John goes, "Why do you think?" Because the majority of the fans out there were saying, 5 or 6 wins. They're like, "Why aren't they 5 to 8 wins?" Yeah, 46% say 5 to 8. They're like, why, John was like, why don't people believe in the Cardinals? Well, it's like, when you get back with the girl that broke your heart, the fans are like, I'm not going to fall for it this time. But I'm in that 21%. I think, that they're going to continue to improve. This franchise is trending in the right direction. You got to give credit to GM Monty Austin-Ford and head coach Jonathan Gannon. Robby, I think they've changed the culture.
Well, the culture is no doubt about that. I mean, it is night and day different. And this is not a knock on Cliff Kingsbury and Steve Keim and that whole regime of the Cardinals, but being around that facility the last 2 years compared to the previous 3 or 4, it is just totally different. The way, just the vibe around the building, the way the guys feel in the locker room, the way that everybody, the way everybody talks, you could just tell. How many times, Richard, has somebody come in, whether it was a free agent or a draft pick in the last 2 or 3 years, and immediately we both look at each other and go, "Oh yeah, makes sense."
Yeah.
Team captain,
right.
national champion, valedictorian of their class. It's like they have such a specific type of human being, not just player, that they want to bring into that building. And like I said, that's not just the draft. That's free agency. Every move that Monty Austin-Fort has made has been in lockstep with Jonathan Gannon. It's been in lockstep with Michael Bidwell. And obviously the hope is this year is the big leap year where they win 10, 11, 12 games. They make the playoffs because this team is in a position where they should be able to do that now, considering the talent that they've put in that room, the coaching staff with 3 years of familiarity with each other with Drew Petzing and Nick Rallis and Jonathan Gannon. The ingredients are all there. Now they just got to cook the meal.
Yeah, and like you said, they have a type, right? And you can see what kind of guys they've been drafting, what kind of guys they've been bringing in free agency. And talent is key, obviously, but you got to be a good teammate. And that's what they're looking for. Good locker room guys, good character guys, leaders on and off the field. And when you mention good teammates, Howard Balzer's a great teammate, right? Howard, we got Michael in the chat. He says 10-7 playoffs for the Cardinals. I kind of agree with that. I'm in that 20% where, like I said, I think this franchise is trending in the right direction, right? They had 5 wins the first year, 8 wins last year. If they make that next step, I think they make the playoffs. But I also think it's on Kyler Murray to help this franchise take that next step? Because now he's got weapons around him. He's got a running game. He's got an offensive line, and he's got a defense. So he doesn't have to do it all like back in the Cliff
Right.
Kingsbury days. So what are your thoughts? Do you think this franchise is heading in the right direction?
I don't think there's any doubt that they are. But the one thing I'll say is, they actually won in Gannon's first year. They won 4, so they improved. They doubled their wins from 4 to 8. But this league, I think sometimes is kind of forgotten how hard it is just to win a game. I mean, look at it from this perspective. Cardinals win 8 games. The Rams in Seattle won 10. That's only 2 games more, and the Rams got the division title on a tiebreaker. But find a way to win 2 other games, and you're at that 10th spot. And the thing is, in this league, when 55% of the games on average are decided by 1 score or less, 75% of the games in that vicinity are 1-score games at some point in the fourth quarter. And so you just have to be a good enough team to find ways to win those close games. And last year, the Cardinals started off losing some close games, and they got themselves in a tough spot. Then they won some close games with those last-second field goals, and all of a sudden, they're in position to win the division. And then guess what? They lost some close games down the home stretch. That is what separates teams in the NFL. There's not that much difference. And so, like you said, I don't think there's any doubt that they're on the right track. But it still comes down to taking care of business, the old cliche, and winning those close games and finding ways to do it. And again, it speaks to, hey, what are you going to do in those last games of the season? I mean, who knows what their record will be, and entering from week 13 when they play Tampa Bay playoff team, Rams playoff team, Houston playoff team, Atlanta not, Cincinnati 1 game away. They got out to a bad start, and then the Rams again. So you're playing a bunch of playoff teams down that home stretch, and that will determine most likely whether they in the vicinity of 7 or 8 wins again, or they can get to 9 or 10. I don't know if it's realistic to think they'll win more than 10, but you never know. Stay healthy. That's another thing that we can never predict. Here we are in May, and guess what? Everybody's healthy, right? Everybody's playing. Coaches are planning, and they're all putting their plans together, and boom, all of a sudden those injuries start to happen. And when you get too many of them, it really affects what happens on the field, and that's something that nobody can predict.
Yeah, well, how dare you come up with facts, right, and bring me back down to reality? I'm trying to dream here.
We're trying to have a good time, Howard.
We'd be a bummer out there. I'm kidding.
Well, if they stay healthy and get on a roll, and we see that growth in Marvin Harrison that so many expect, and all
he got
those
bigger.
things.
I saw him at Mac Wilson's charity basketball game next Saturday.
Yeah,
he put on some muscle.
Yeah, and Robby, you had mentioned that the Cardinals seemed to fizzle towards the end of the season. What are your thoughts on why that is? Is it lack of depth where guys get worn down? I know in games I would notice that they would have a lead. We mentioned the Buffalo game, and then in the second half it seemed like the D-line and the defense would get worn down, and they would give up leads, and that's why they lose a couple of those close games. And I think with this draft and the offseason focusing so much on the defensive side of the football, the Cardinals were aware of that, right? And they're like, look, we need to beef up our defense and our depth. Do you think that could be a key to winning those games that they've lost in years past?
I mean, I think you hit the nail on the head there. I think you look at last year, they're going into the bye. They beat the Bears. They beat the Jets. Was it a 3 or 4 game win streak, I think, going into the bye week? And it's like, okay, this is it. They're
going to win the division.
They're going to get healthy now. They get to come out. They get to play Seattle. I think it was 2 of the 3 weeks out of the bye. So it's like, okay, they got extra time to plan. And then obviously we know what ended up happening was nothing really went according to plan.
Right. And
they fizzled down the stretch. I think you hit the nail on the head. Excuse me, the nail on the head. And when you look at what this team did in the draft, pretty much every draft pick except for one was on defense, and pretty much every addition in free agency was on defense. And I think that's because you see the way the Cardinals like to get after the quarterback, the way they kind of play that, not necessarily overly aggressive, but Nick Rallis is an aggressive defensive coordinator. They have so much depth now. They can pretty much just throw waves of guys at people. And you talk about the draft class and additions. Think about last year. Darius Robinson barely scratched the surface last year.
He's a redshirt year for him, basically.
Yeah, and so you got guys like him coming back. Jesse Lucado's still on the team. He ended up becoming more of a kind of a special teams guy, but they have so many bodies this year, and it's not just depth for the sake of having depth. They have quality depth, especially on defense this year, that they haven't had as long as I can remember. So when you get later in the season, there will be injuries. I mean, we joked with Howard that he was bringing harsh in our vibe here.
Right, exactly.
But it's going to happen. It's inevitable in the national, and the NFL stands for not for long, right? Whether it's your career or injuries or whatever. They have depth now, really on both sides of the ball, to withstand some of that. The only area that I'm a little concerned of, depth-wise, is the offensive line group right now. Not because of the quality of the players they have, but just in the depth if they get any injuries. But you could probably say that about every team across the NFL when it comes to the offensive line.
Yeah, and Howard, we talked about, the Cardinals were downright defensive, right, in this draft. But not only did they bring in, young talent, they kept guys, right? Like Baron Browning, the guy, the linebacker they got with Denver in the middle of the year that seemed to really fit right in. Then we haven't even talked about Josh Sweat, who was absolutely unbelievable in the Super Bowl. And I was like, man, I'm so glad that they got him. I remember you telling me, Howard, that a lot of the reasons why he was successful was because of the D line. So what do you think about the addition of Josh Sweat and keeping Baron Browning, some veterans that could help out these young linebackers this year?
No question. Everybody has to be doing their job. I know it sounds like a cliche, but that the offensive and defensive line is where it happens in the NFL. We all get enamored with the quarterback, and then when things don't go well on offense, everyone blames the quarterback, blames the play caller. But a lot of times it has to do with the offensive line. And when you look at that Eagles team, aside from just Josh Sweat and that defensive line they had, look at that offensive line that the Eagles have. And I thought it was interesting, guys, that during Super Bowl week, Andy Reid was asked about Howie Roseman, the Eagles general manager, who he worked for when he was the head coach of the Eagles numerous years ago. And he said the great thing about Howie is he has always been intent on building the lines, building the offensive and defensive lines, because that's where games are won and lost. And he says, and especially on offense, you can't function on offense consistently if you don't have that offensive line. And the Eagles have both. And Sweat with his big game in the Super Bowl, and Milton Williams made a whole lot of money in what happened in the Super Bowl. You know the best player on that defense is Jalen Carter, and he's coming back. And the Chiefs' plan in that game with a substandard offensive line because of injuries was they doubled Jalen Carter and at times triple teamed him. Well, guess what that did? It just opened up possibilities for the rest of that defense. And look at, as great as Patrick Mahomes in that offense is, look at what happened to him in that game. Look what happened to him 5 years ago when they lost to Tampa Bay in the Super Bowl, and Tom Brady, when the Chiefs' offensive line had a bunch of injuries. Patrick Mahomes was running for his life. And when you have that, like I said, you can't be consistent on offense. So that's key for the Cardinals. They're building the line defensively with Sweat, and then the inside guys with Tomlinson and bringing Calais back and drafting Walter Nolan III. I mean, they have a lot of guys in both those rooms, defensive line and linebacker, that are going to be competing. And the line they've built up, yes, Robby, you're right. They probably need a little bit more depth. We don't even know who the right guard is going to be right now. Right? Is it Isaiah Adams, who played a handful of games last year as a rookie? Is it him? Is there a possibility that if Will Hernandez is recovered from his knee injury, that at some point he could come back? But we don't know who the right guard is right now on this team. And so that's obviously every spot on the offensive line is very important. So all those things have to be working in tandem. Football is the ultimate team sport. We can look at the individual guys, but most of the time, great teams play great because all the players, work off each other and as a unit play great football. And that's the reason the Eagles are the defending NFL champions.
You mentioned Howie Roseman and the way he's built the Eagles. The easiest way to play for Philadelphia is you just go to the University of Georgia. Yeah. Then they draft you. And then we were talking about how Monty Ossenfort has built the Cardinals. The easiest way to pack your bags to Arizona is go to Ohio State. Yeah, pretty much if you go to Ohio State, then Monty Ossenfort will draft you. Just a quick kind of behind the scenes, behind the curtain here, too. We have a bunch of monitors up here so we can see all the stream stuff, the comments. We actually have a monitor up where we can see every live shot that's coming in for the shows. And I just want to be honest with the viewers. Howard was giving great information, but Corey was at a Mexican restaurant and was going over some quesadillas and some type of steak situation. I was very distracted.
Yeah,
It's like It's 5:30. I'm pretty hungry, and all I was thinking was, man, those look like some good tacos.
Right, you had
so
me
I
a
apologize,
quesadilla.
Howard. Yeah, I apologize.
Yeah, the Cardinals are hungry for a win, right? They're hungry for a winning season. That's for sure. And we're
And
hungry
that's
here.
why you get paid the median bucks. That transition, that's how we do it.
Exactly. That's how we do it. That's for sure. And, we've been talking about the Cardinals obviously going all in on defense in this draft, right? Every pick but one was on the defensive side of the football. They get Josh Sweat. They keep Aaron Browning. But, you got to score points to win. And, no wide receiver drafted. A lot of people thought the Cardinals were going to draft a wideout this year. They didn't. You got, Maserati Marv. Sometimes he kind of looked like Mazda Miata Marv at times, but
you got to do him like that,
they
Richard.
didn't use him. If you got a Maserati, you got to drive that thing. If I got a Maserati, I'm driving that thing every day, and I'm driving it 5 miles an hour so people can see me in it. Like, yeah, I'm in this car, right?
You would make up errands to run. You're like, I could use more tissue. I need more tissues.
Starbucks,
Yeah,
Wells Fargo, yeah, for sure. So no help for him this year. So does that mean that the Cardinals like what they've seen from Michael Wilson? I mean, he says all the right things. He's a great kid, Stanford guy. When he walks in, he's the smartest guy in the room. So, Robby, are you all in? Trey McBride is, the best, one of the best tight ends in the game.
He's kind of your number one wide receiver.
I know.
Yeah. It's almost kind of, it's entirely unfair to compare them to Kansas City because it's two different worlds of offensive achievement. But if you look at how Kansas City in the last 5 to 6 years built their offense, it was Travis Kelce, and then once they got rid of Tyreek Hill, the wide receivers didn't really matter. It was you had a really good quarterback and a really good tight end, and the tight end was a mismatch. That kind of seems to be the way the Cardinals are trending with how they're building this, and it makes sense with the skill set that Trey McBride possesses. And then you have Marv, who, as I said, I saw him last week. I almost didn't recognize him when he walked into the gym at Mac Wilson's basketball game. He put on some muscle this offseason. He looks big. He looks good. He looks ready for the season. Michael Wilson's great. Personally, I think he's a great guy. He's always great with us in the media. Very insightful, win, lose, or draw after games. I'm not entirely sure he is your clear-cut number 2 to pull attention away from Marvin so that they can't bracket coverage and stuff like we saw at times last year. There are guys out there, and Howard, you know more than I do who's available. I doubt they're going to go after somebody like an Amari Cooper type player who is available right now, but is that an option? I mean, we talked about the offensive line, but do you think the Cardinals could look at a free agent at some point here? We asked Monty about it, and it's always the same answer. GM speak of, well, we're always going to look to improve talent, and everything's on the table. But is that on the table, do you think? Because the wide receiver room, I wouldn't say is light, but it wouldn't hurt if they had another body.
No, I'm with you on that. And I think that, another threat at wide receiver, is important. There's not a lot out there. You mentioned Amari Cooper. People mentioned Keenan Allen, who's like 32, 33 years old. I just don't think those are realistic options. And I don't know how much they could really bring to the table at this point of their careers. And so that's what they're looking at. There's not a lot of wide receivers out there. In fact, we put a roster together in Lindy's. I call it the homeless roster. And it's a page of guys who aren't on a team when we go to press. And I was putting it together in the last day or two, and there's not too many wide receivers on there. And most of them are up there in years. And so that's a tough spot. So I think obviously they're hoping for more improvement from Marvin Harrison Jr. and then get what you will out of Michael Wilson and Greg Dortch. What could be interesting, and I don't want to oversell these guys, but they signed a guy in free agency who no one even noticed, a guy named Simi Fehoko, who I think he's another Stanford guy. And so, but he apparently has some pretty good speed. And then there's Xavier Weaver, who made the team last year as an undrafted free agent and hardly played, was inactive virtually all the season, all year. And so I think they might be looking for some of those young guys to step up and improve. And there could be a pretty good competition between those two guys plus Zay Jones, who, a certain amount was expected of him from him last year. The suspension hurt, lost the beginning of the season, and he was never really a factor. Now, I'm not saying these guys are game breakers, that these guys are great players, but it looks like right now that's what they're counting on to upgrade, that room. And I'm sure they're always looking at guys that are out there, but I just really question whether there's anyone of true value that would make that much of a difference to bring in at this point.
Yeah, we got some great comments in the chat. We got Denise G. Nice. She says, I agree with the offense, so thanks for that. And then, of course, Alexandra, Alex Medina, thanks for the compliment. The check's in the mail. I'll Venmo you, right? I guess checks in the mail is such an old term, right?
Cash app.
Yeah, yeah.
And whatever the kids
it's
use.
It's still registering now, Robbie. When you pointed to me, you said, that's why I make the medium bucks. Did I get a raise that I don't know about? Because I'm only rich in name. Yeah, so, but I'm going to have to earn my money in a couple more minutes because like we did earlier when I did the live hit for the news at the top of the 5 on the actual Fox 10 channel. I'm going to have to do the sports. I'll anchor the sports from here, and you guys on the Fox Local app and on the YouTube channel can watch me anchor the sports, kind of a behind-the-scenes look. But before we get to that, we're talking offense, we're talking wide receiver, obviously a lot of focus on the defense. And I know, the draft is always a lot of fun, and so far, the GM Monty Austin Ford has nailed the draft. I think that his last 3 years, you see the theme, you see the type of players that they want, and the draft picks make sense. He trades down, he acquires picks, because he says, look, the more picks you have, it's like more lottery tickets, the more chances you have of actually hitting on a guy, right? And then last year, this past draft, they went, all defense except for an offensive lineman. And a lot of people were wanting the Arizona Cardinals to draft Cam Skattebo, right? A guy that, is a fan favorite here, Arizona State. This guy's a game changer. He was the heart and soul of that offense, and he's the kind of guy that you want on that wall. You need on that wall, right? He's not going to go down, and I'm curious to see how his game's going to translate to the NFL. And I was talking to one guy, and he was saying, you know what, I'm glad the Cardinals didn't draft Cam Skattebo, because when you think about it, the Cardinals already set at running back with James Conner and Benson, right? So where would he fit in there? But then he gets drafted by the Giants, and it seems like, Robbie, he's going to have a chance to play there. What do you think about that, and how cool is it to see him in number 44 for the New York Football Giants?
44, kind of, when I saw the picture the first time, it kind of got like Mike Alstott vibes.
Right.
Like Cam's not a fullback, but just the
he's got that mentality.
He's going to run you over. And his first, media session in New York was Cam. It's what we've got to know.
He won the press conference.
Yeah, it's exactly what we've got to know. We were lucky to get to know him over the last couple of years here in Tempe. It would have been fun if he stayed here, like you said, but that's a crowded running back room. James Conner, Trey Benson, Michael Carter is still there. Amari DiMercado came on in the second half of last year and showed some flashes. DJ Dallas is also still there. He's more of a special teams guy, so it makes sense why the Cardinals didn't pull the trigger. But if you just judge it solely off of social media from rookie minicamp, I wouldn't have known that the Giants drafted anybody other than Cam Skattebo.
Yeah.
He was.
Did they draft somebody
I don't know
else?
if they did actually. I think that was they drafted him with all 8 of their picks.
Yeah.
But in all honesty, though, it was a couple handoffs from Jackson Dart to him, and then like 5 different clips from his press conference. Pretty much all of the Giants. It was pictures of Abdul Carter and Jackson Dart and Cam Skattebo together. That was the rookie photo shoot they put out and stuff. So, if you want to read those tea leaves, then the Giants seem very happy with what they've already gotten in Cam Skattebo, as they should be. But it'll be exciting. We'll be rooting for him. It's kind of a bummer because, if he wasn't going to go to the Cardinals, it's like, well, maybe he'll go to San Francisco or something.
Yeah.
You can see him a couple times a year, but it may be a little while till we see the Cardinals play the Giants. But the beauty of the internet now, we can watch the Red Zone every time he scores. We'll get to see it on Red Zone.
Yeah, I'm going to look at the Giants schedule, see if he's playing out west. Right? See,
there you go.
We get a chance to see him. Yeah, but Howard, we're about 4 minutes away from my sports hit on the Fox 10 channel. But in a couple of minutes, give us your thoughts on Cam Skattebo and his fit there with the New York Football Giants.
Yeah, they could have a real good thunder and lightning duo with Tyrone Tracy Jr., who's a pretty good running back. They also have Devin Singletary, but I think there's a good role for Cam there because they don't have a workhorse guy like James Conner, and so I think it is a good spot for him. And we'll see how it all plays out. But the point you made, Richard, about being a fit here with Conner and with Benson. If they didn't have Trey Benson, it might have been interesting what they might have done. But the worst thing in the world was you bring in Cam Skattebo, and all of a sudden he's not playing, and then the fans are screaming bloody murder. You drafted the local guy from Arizona State, and you're not playing, and what's going on? So that could end up being a little bit of a minor distraction. So, but good, like I said, good spot for him, and I think it'll be a good committee there with the Giants with the running backs that they have.
Your point there, Howard, of the fan base potentially being riled up if Cam didn't play here. It'll be very interesting what happens in Cleveland throughout the preseason and once the season starts. And similarly, like I said, Scadaboo got a lot of love from the Giants' social media. I did not see a lot of Dylan Gabriel clips come out of Brown's rookie minicamp. There seemed to be a lot of certain Shedeur Sanders clips circling the internet last weekend, which I suppose you kind of understand with the last name. But I think that was part of what happened in the draft with Shedeur is you really don't want your backup quarterback to potentially be the one that all the reporters are circling the locker room or his locker, I should say.
I'll tell you a little after Richard is done with his report. I think we'll have a couple minutes. I'll tell you an interesting story about something similar that happened in the past in the NFL. Like you said, Robby, you don't want a guy who's not even playing to be the distraction and being the guy that all the media is coming to when he's just a backup.
Well, yeah, we got a couple of minutes. Howard, who you talk about there?
Well, when I was still in St. Louis, back in 2014, and the Rams drafted Michael Sam in the 7th round of the draft. And of course, he had come out as being gay about a month before, maybe a little bit longer than that, before the draft. He wasn't that great a player, but everyone was wondering, when's he could be drafted? And the Rams drafted him in the 7th round. The story I had is that the league asked the Rams to do that because they didn't want him to be undrafted, and he went to University of Missouri. So he comes into the Rams with all this hullabaloo, and every week, guys, in training camp, there was a press conference with Michael Sam, with people coming in, not local, but from national reporters. And then Josina Anderson of ESPN got the ire of Jeff Fisher, the head coach, when she went around the locker room asking guys what it was like to go to, take a shower when he's around. I mean, it was just so ridiculous. But he wasn't a good enough player, and he got cut in the reduction of 53. And he was on the Cowboys practice squad for about a month and was never in the NFL again. But if he was a great player, then they would have found a way. But for a backup guy to be getting all that press notice, teams just don't want to deal with that. And I think that was a big part of what happened with Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, and great point, Howard, because, it was a major distraction. I remember that. I remember him getting drafted by the Rams, and that was what a lot of people were talking about. And it was, it's not normal for a guy drafted that late to get that kind of attention. And you got to think how it affects the teammates and the other draftees, right? Where they're thinking like, here I am making plays and nobody even cares about what I'm doing. So that's got to cause a divide in the locker room. And I think that could be one of the reasons why a lot of the teams in the NFL kind of shied away from drafting Shedeur Sanders. Also, it doesn't help when you're doing the press conference. You say, well, if you're not looking to change the culture, don't draft me, right? I don't think you ever want to say don't draft me. No matter what you're doing. You don't want to go to a job interview and say, well, if you don't want this, don't hire me. Guess what? You're not going to get hired.
Shedeur, it's like showing up and being like, so how many vacation days do I get? And I'm going to need every 3rd Friday off. And
do you guys honor Flag Day? Because I need that Flag Day off as well. Yeah. So, in a couple of minutes, I'll do the sports hit. And like we mentioned, we can, watch it here on the YouTube channel, kind of a behind-the-scenes look and see how it works. And we're about 90 seconds away. We're watching Corey do his live shot. Yeah, that food does look good.
Man. That quesadilla, I'm getting hungrier.
Yeah. The cool thing though about Corey is he usually comes back with some of that food. So
I don't know if this is making it back. I wouldn't make it back if I was doing the live shot.
Yeah.
Don't get me hungry because it's almost 8:00 where I am. And,
that's fair time change. Yeah, Birmingham, Alabama.
And we got to give you props, Howard. You're a real trooper. You're in the hotel. You're working on the Lindsay magazine that you've been doing for, 40 years now. We appreciate you making time for us. That's super cool. So, we still want to talk to you after my sports hit. We're going to go back to you in a couple minutes. But, just sit tight. We know you got the penthouse suite there at the Ritz-Carlton there in Alabama or wherever you're doing that stuff. But, I can't wait to see what you write about the Cardinals. Because I think it's going to be an interesting year for them. Like you mentioned, 4 wins the first year, 8 wins last year. We'll see what they do in year 3. They've got the right picks, that's for sure. So Corey's about to wrap up his live shot out there at the Mexican restaurant. And now we're talking Buc-ee's. You know, that's a big thing for sure. And we're talking Cardinals football. Finally, it's official. The NFL schedule has been released. How the Cardinals will fare with their schedule, where they'll be, primetime matchups. We've got it all for you coming up after the break. Yeah, so for you guys at home or on the YouTube channel, Fox Local app, I got monitors here like Robby was mentioning earlier. We've got monitors where we can see every single live shot. We can see what's actually being on the program out there. What's on the actual Fox 10 TV channel, right? So we could see that. I just saw that they had my tease video, so I gave a little tease there. We're in the commercial break. I can hear my producers there, in the control room for the actual newscast. So we're in a commercial break right now. My guy Mark Balzer was just talking to me, saying stand by. And so right now, once we come out of the commercial break, what I'm going to do, I'll give you the rundown of what we're going to do. I'm going to tease what we're doing here because people, I'm sure, at home will be watching, going, hey, wait, why is it Richard in the studio? What's he doing in this room without a tie on and his glasses on, playing it casual? I'll mention that we're talking about the special show, the streaming show that we have, and then we got to talk D-backs. Robby's ready with the Cardinals flag. That's pretty cool. I like that. We got props. Look at that. See that?
What are we doing?
That's why you make the medium bucks too. Yeah. So we're having fun. It's cool to see the schedule, and we're gonna talk Diamondback baseball as well. The D-backs were looking to win the game and win the series in San Francisco. You got to beat the teams in your division. That's kind of what we're gonna touch on here. So I got like my scripts here where I can write, and then I got the plays. Michael Obi, we're like 90 seconds away. Is that what you're saying here? So they're giving me time cues in this studio. Then I got Mark Balzer in the actual broadcast studio, control room giving me cues. So it's gonna be cool. So we'll see. I've never done this before, so it's gonna be fun. We're doing it live, as they say. And so we got people in the chat. Denise says Corey's not gonna bring back any food. Back to he's not. Why isn't he gonna do that? Usually he does. Come on, be nice, Denise. So hopefully he will, because boy, I'm hungry. That's for sure. And probably about 60 seconds away from the actual newscast. Like I said, I'll do a little lead in explaining why I'm not in the studio, and then we'll get into the D-back highlights. And we also have a report from the great Robby Baker on the GCU softball team. They're doing pretty well. They're doing really well, actually. They got 23-game win streak going, and they're in the Tucson Regional, so they're exciting times for them. And when you win, you stay, right? And you get contract extensions. So that's one of the things that Robby will talk about. Some good news for the coaching staff and the players there as they keep things intact. So that's going to be pretty cool to see. So we're about 30 seconds away, I guess. We're going to come out of break, they said, but it's not going to come straight to me. They're going to do a couple stories right now. I see it now. The Buc-ee's. Yeah, Buc-ee's coming to Goodyear, being from Texas. I'm telling you, it's like if Walmart and Costco had a baby, they would have a Buc-ee's. They have a brisket station there. They have a candy station there. They have all kinds of gas pumps. It's amazing to see. It's going to be in Goodyear, so a lot of people are excited about that. So we're in the middle of the Buc-ee story right now. It's about 1:10. It's called a package when they actually do a story. So, and then after the 1:10 package, they'll probably come back to me. We'll talk about what we're doing here. We'll show some of the Diamondback highlights. Ketel Marte, he's back. 2 home runs today. Gino Suarez with a home run, and then they race out to the big lead. The D-backs do, and then they almost blow it. It can never be simple, right? It can never be, an easy. It's always got to be Heartbreak Hotel or Heart Attack, more like it, right? Because they hold on for the win, but barely. Good thing they needed all 8 of those runs, and they get the win 8-7, which is great because they win the series. And you got to beat the teams in your division. They split with the Dodgers, win the series, and now they got the Rockies next. Rockies are one of the worst teams in baseball. They just fired their manager. You got to get a sweep there. Then it's the Dodgers again. So this is a tough stretch. Just got a cue. We're about 10, 15 seconds away. So they'll run my open, and then, like I said, I'll kind of explain what's going on. All right. They're doing a Bucky question of the day. They talk about that, and we'll talk sports here. All right, here we go. Couple seconds for me. Like I said, I'll do the highlights, and then we'll go. All right, guys, we mixed things up. I'm here in Studio 3. We are talking Cardinals football. The NFL schedule gets released. Hallelujah, right? It's a great day when that happens because you get to look at the schedule. So we're actually streaming on our Fox 10 YouTube channel as we speak on the Fox Local app as well. So that's cool. But, hey, it wasn't all just football today. How about the Arizona Diamondbacks? It was a day game for the D-backs. D-backs taking on the San Francisco Giants. Win this game, you win the series. Ketel Marte gets the party started. First inning, you can kiss that baby goodbye. Solo shot just like that, 1-0. D-backs, top of the third. How about this? Gino Suarez says, I like this kind of party. He joins the home run derby. He gets it on the act. That's gone. That makes it 6-2. D-backs with the lead. Marte back for more. Bye-bye baseball. Another homer in the top of the fourth. 2-run shot. That makes it 8-2 Diamondbacks. How about that? They are cruising. But, oh, boy, it could never be simple. 8-7 bases loaded in the bottom of the ninth. He popped them up. Shelby Miller gets the save. The D-backs escape with the 8-7 victory. They get the win, and they win the series, right? We can't forget about the college kids. The GCU softball team having a heck of a year. Yeah, they have one of the best win streaks in all of softball. Going on 23 wins in a row and counting. Up next, Ole Miss in the Tucson Regional on Friday. But wait, there's more. Some good news for the players and the coaching staff. Robby Baker has more. So now I just tossed to the Robby Baker package or story. We'll come back, and I'll be on camera, and I'll kind of put the bow on the actual sportscast for the newscast, and then we'll go back to streaming. Howard's on deck. Where's the flag? You still have that flag, Robby? Oh, that's right. Okay, yeah. We're going to place that flag, yeah. My pocket square is crooked. It always annoys me. Now it's straight. Good stuff from Robby. All right, that wraps up the Fox 10 sports part, right, on Fox 10. But we're still streaming, right? So we're on the Fox 10 YouTube channel. We're on the Fox Local app. So, we're going to be on until 6 o'clock. We're talking Cardinals football. I got Robby Baker here in studio. We got Howard Balzer, our Cardinals insider. So we'll be talking about the Cardinals and their schedule going up till 6 o'clock. So, guys, back to you in Studio 1. I'm still here in Studio 3. Yeah, I say, hey, my ADD works great because I can focus on several things at one time. Comes in handy. It sure is. Thanks, guys. So John Hook he said I'm like a utility player, a utility infielder. You can play several positions. So that's the funny part. So yeah.
You're our Tim Tawa.
Yeah, hey, I'll take it. I'll take it. So who's Howard Balzer? He's our Josh Naylor. He's our home run hitter.
Yeah, power
know?
hitter.
Yeah.
Cleanup guy in the hole.
Yeah.
I do have to say this, Richard. Hey, Richard, I do have to say this.
Yes.
How special the people watching on YouTube or on the app what they just saw, because we all know the signature Richard Saenz. You can kiss that baby goodbye. If you're watching on TV, you never see him say that because they're showing the highlight.
Right.
Here, we could see him actually do the kiss. That was special. That was special.
That was just for you, Howard, too.
Yeah, exactly.
He was sending that one to Birmingham, Alabama.
Yeah, exactly.
Sealed with a kiss, baby. Sealed with a
Hey, I meant to ask earlier. We were talking about food, and I never got off that in my mind. Are you?
I like your style, Robby.
Thank you. Are you? Because I worked in Alabama before coming back here to Arizona. Are you a white barbecue sauce guy, Howard? Because I know that's a big thing in Alabama.
Yeah, it is. In fact, there's a right across from the hotel I stay. It's really convenient. I end up eating there almost every night. There's a barbecue place down here called Jim and Nick's, and all I have to do is walk out the front door of the hotel and walk across the parking lot and get whatever I'm in the mood for. Well, the other night, I guess it was last night, I had the white kind of barbecue sauce on a corn on the cob.
Oh,
wow.
And it was pretty good.
That's innovative.
But I gotta admit, white barbecue sauce, yeah, that's called gravy.
It's kind of more like a cheese sauce, yeah. It's a divisive thing. That's why I was asking.
It's definitely an Alabama thing, because in Texas they don't have that.
Sauce better. I like the regular sauce better, but Jim and Nick's is my go-to place when I'm down here, and it's very convenient.
There you go. Shout out.
Yeah. So Howard, when is the Lindsay magazine going to be released? How much time do you have to put this thing together, and how much time do you put in? I mean, this has got to be a year-long thing for you, right? All kinds of research and everything.
Yeah, there's a lot during the year, but it's just intense over the last 3 weeks or so, and all this content comes in after the draft. I did get an extra week this year, which was tremendous, because in the past we've gone to the printer 2 weeks after the draft. This time it's 3. So, but there's a tremendous amount of content. I look at it all, I edit it all, and it's just massive with 32 team stories and a whole bunch of features and a lot of other things. But it goes to the printer on Sunday, and it should be available in your local stores somewhere around the first week in June. And so I urge everybody to go out there. There's incredible, like I said, it's an incredible amount of information in there. And it's a great thing to have to get ready for the season. And I've been honored to be doing this for as long as I have with Lindy Davis. This is mentioned at the top of the show, my 33rd magazine that I've helped put to bed.
So who's on the cover? Is it Dennis Gardack? Who's it going to be? You can tell us now.
It is Trey McBride.
Hey,
Robby always wins.
Nah, Howard told us before. I'll be honest. I knew the answer. It was a loaded question.
And it makes sense, especially since Connor was on it last year, and Kyler Murray was maybe too obvious of a choice. And Trey McBride earned it. I mean, he's the top tight end in the National Football. He's been absolutely amazing. Like you said, Robby, he's the best receiver on the team when you think about it.
Yeah, Trey. It's a very fitting honor for Trey. As they say, failing to prepare is preparing to fail. So I have a couple stats about the schedule stuff we haven't been able to work in yet, and since we have only a couple minutes left on the stream, a couple fun facts to send the folks on their way. In terms of miles traveled, Fox Sports put out a graphic. The Cardinals this year will travel about 20,363 miles to play all their games. The Bengals will reportedly travel the least, about 8,700 miles traveled by the Cincinnati Bengals this year. And Kansas City, not surprising, but they will play 5 of their first 8 games in primetime this year. That's what happens when you have Patrick Mahomes, I suppose, as your quarterback. But the Cardinals only have 2 primetime games all season. Basically, the entire first half of Kansas City's schedule will be primetime games.
Yeah, and it's funny because can you imagine if Patrick Mahomes played for the Dallas Cowboys? It'd be primetime every week.
I don't think they would play any other games. It was just the Cowboys would play in every time slot and every window on every channel.
Hey, I want to thank you, Robby, for being on the show. That was a lot of fun. Howard, you're the best, man. We appreciate you. Rudy's Barbecue. I'll see if I can get some white barbecue sauce for you. I don't know. Maybe you can bring it back and we'll try
What are you getting
Rudy's
tonight, Howard? What are you getting tonight? Quick.
Yeah.
I haven't decided yet. I hope they're still open. I might eat a little bit light since it's this late, but I had the barbecue chicken last night. Probably gonna wait to have the ribs for tomorrow. I might just get It sounds crazy to go to a barbecue restaurant and get a burger, but I might get the brisket.
You gonna be
Side
that guy?
salad.
Get a burger? and a
Side
barbecue?
salad, you know.
Yeah. Balzer working on his figure. We appreciate you're in mid-season form already. Hey, thanks to everybody in the chat too. Appreciate you guys. We got a couple seconds left. So Howard, thank you. Robby, thank you. Everybody there at the chat, thank you. This was another special edition of Fox 10 Talk Sports. Thanks for listening because I'm going to keep talking. That's for sure. We got plenty to talk about this year. So, we'll tune in. We'll have more tonight on Fox 10. So plenty of Cardinals stuff and NFL stuff all week long. So thanks for tuning in. Have a great day, everybody.